alien nurse shocked by an unexpected swelling between her human patient legs. The Galactic Station's military hospital hummed with activity as medics rushed to treat the ilks of wounded soldiers from the latest skirmish. Amidst the chaos, a striking humanoid nurse named Zyla focused intently on her newest patient, a human male with chestnut hair and a dusting of stubble across his chiseled jaw. Zyla's emerald skin shimmered under the med bay lights as she brushed a lock of navy hair behind her pointed ear. Here, humans were still a novelty to the galactic community, and she couldn't help but marvel at the alien male's exotic features. As she lay unconscious and vulnerable before her, "What's this one's status?" Zyle asked, glancing at this chart-stable condition, but it took an nasty blow to the head. The lead doctor replied, "He'll likely be out for a while. In the meantime, standard sponge bath protocol." Zyle nodded, gathering the necessary supplies as an aspiring nurse as she took pride in providing the best possible care event. To these strange new alleys, she filled a basin with warm, soapy water and set to work gently cleansing the human's battered body. Zyla found her gaze lingering on his sculpted muscles, so different from her own species' life physique. A warmth spread through her. As she wondered what it might feel like to be held in his powerful arms, Zyla shook her head, dispelling the inappropriate thought she had a job to do. Moving lower, she delicately ran the sponge along his legs until by the 7 moon, Zyla sped, jumping back in shock between the human's legs. Something was growing, swelling at an alarming rate. In all her studies, she'd never seen anything like it. Panic seized her. "Ething must be terribly wrong, doctor. Come quickly," Zyla cried out. "I think the patient is coding." The lead doctor rushed over, took one look at the human's condition, and to Zyla's utter disbelief, he burst out laughing. Soon the other medical staff joined in the gal. "So honey," an older nurse chuckled, wiping mirthful tears from here. "That's no code, that's just his little soldier standing at attention." Zyla stared at them perplexed. "I don't understand. Is this not a sign of impending death in humans?" "Far from it," the doctor replied with an amused grin. "It's a perfectly ill biological response. Human males have quite the impressive equipment. Down." "The recongratulations, nurse. It appears your gentle touch was more stimulating than you realized." Mortified Zyla felt their cheeks burn bright purple with embarrassment. She'd never live this down. Determined to maintain some shred of dignity, she straightened her shoulders and returned to her task, pointedly ignoring the snickers and knowing looks from her colleagues as she finished the bath. Zyla couldn't help sneaking a few more curious glances at the human's mysterious swelling. She had so many questions but didn't dare voice them all. She knew that humans were even more fascinating than she'd imagined. Days passed and Zyla found herself volunteering for every shift to care for the soldiers. He told herself it was to make up for her earlier blunder, but deep down she knew there was more to it. Something about this mailed to her late one night. As Zyla was adjusting his pillow, the human's eyes suddenly fluttered open, locking onto hers. She froze, captivated by the intensity of his gaze. "Where am I?" Her sped his voice, husky from disuse. Zyla swallowed hard, her heart racing. "You're safe in the hospital," she managed. "You were wounded in battle. We've been caring for you." A weak smile tugged at this lip swell. "I must have died and gone to heaven because I'm looking at an angel." As blush returned with a vengeance. She wasn't sure if it was a compliment or delirium talking, but she couldn't deny the thrill his words sent through her. Just then the doctor entered, interrupting the charged moment. "A sergeant, well, glad to see you've rejoined the land of the living," he said jovially. "You gave us quite the scare, especially poor Zyla here. She thought your mooring glory was a sign you were knocking on death's door." The doctor GA at this own joke, and to Zyla's surprise while joined. Din with a good-natured laugh had turned to her, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Well, nurse, I'd be more than happy to give you a chance to get better acquainted with my swelling." Sometimes Zyla felt their cheeks burn even hotter, but she couldn't tear her gaze away from the tantalizing bulge beneath the sheets. She bit her lip. "A seductive gleam in here." She met Wild's smoldering stare. Maybe this mortifying mix-up was the start of something unexpectedly thrilling. As Sergeant Wild began his long road to recovery, Zyla eagerly volunteered to oversee his physical therapy sessions. She told herself it was purely professional interest, but the electric tingling she felt whenever she was near him suggested otherwise. Wild grinned as Zyla entered the therapy room, his eyes roaming appreciatively over her form. "Well, hello there, my favorite nurse, ready to whip me back into shape?" Zyla fought back a blush, determined to maintain a semblance of decorum. "Of course, Sergeant. We'll start with some basic stretches to improve your mobility." As she guided him through the exercises, Zyla couldn't help but admire the way Will's muscles flexed, rippled beneath his skin-tight workout clothes. She found herself lingering just a bit longer than necessary when adjusting his posture, relishing the feel of his firm body beneath her fingertips. Wild, for his parts, seemed to be enjoying the attention immensely. He made a show of grunting and straining with each movement, his face contorting in exaggerated expressions of effort. for really putting me through my pace, nurse. I might need some extra special care after this. Zilla rolled her eyes, even as a smile tugged at her lips. I think you'll survive, tough guy. Now let's Ovion to some resistance training. She handed him a set of elastic bands, deliberately brushing her fingers against this as Shedidzel breath hitched at the contact, his pupils dilating with unmistakable desire as she began the exercises. Zyla found it increasingly difficult to tear her gaze away from the enticing bulge that strained against his shorts with each movement. Memories of that shocking first encounter flooded back, sending heat coursing through her veins. Wild noticed her staring and shot a roicked grin. See something you like? Nurse Zilla's cheeks flushed a deep emerald, but she couldn't resist rising to his challenge. Just admiring your form, Sergeant. You seem to be making excellent progress. Well, I do aim to impress, Hidrald, flexing his biceps for emphasis, but I think it might need some hands-on assistance with my next set. Heart-pounding, Zyla stepped closer, placing her hands on his hips to guide him through a series of squats. The heat of his body seeped into her palms, igniting a fire within her. As Wild straightened up from a particularly deep squat, the suddenly lost this balance, tumbling backwards and pulling Zyla with him. They landed in a tangled heap on the exercise mat. Zyla sprawled across Wilder's chest. For a moment, they simply stared, either panting heavily, their face mere inches apart. Zilla could feel the heart evidence of wild arousal pressing insistently against her thigh. I guess I fell for you, Wild murmured, his voice low and husky. Zyla swallowed hard, her entire body thrumming with need, Sergeant. I shouldn't, but Wild silenced her protest with a searing kiss, his lips claiming hers with a passion that left her breathless as Zyla melted into his embrace, all thoughts of propriety flying out the window, while she lost herself in the exquisite sense she wakened with. In her willed hands roamed her body, leaving trails of fire in their wake. Legaspetta, she cued her breasts, his thumbs steezing her tops through the thin fabric of her uniform. She ground her hips, this desperate for more friction, more contact, more of him. Just as Wild began tugging at the zipper of her jumpsuit, a loud cough from the doorway startled the map arts. Lil leaped to her feet, thistily smoothing her hair and clothing, while Wild sat up with a sheepish grin. I hope I'm not interrupting anything, the doctor said, arching an eyebrow at their disheveled state. Note 8. All Silaire replied, her voice an octave higher than usual. We were just working on some core strengthening exercises. The doctor looked unconvinced, but simply shook his head and chuckled. Well, carry on then, but Dotry, to keep it professional, you. Who ace? The doctor left. Scylla turned Wild, her face burning with embarrassment and unfulfilled desire. We can't do this again, she whispered. It's too risky. Wilder reached out, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her arm with a tenderness that made her heart ache. But it feels so right. The murmured, I've never wanted anyone the way I want to use. Zilla closed here, eyes torn between duty and passion. She knew falling for a patient was our sip for disaster, but how could she resist the magnetic pull shuffled towards this man? With a sigh, she stepped back, putting some much-needed distance between them. Let's just focus on getting you healed. Sergeant, on step at a time. Wild nodded, our rules smile playing on his lips. As you wish, but just know that I'm not giving up on us that easily. As Zyla resumed guiding him through the therapy exercises, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just gotten a whole lot more complicated and a whole lot more exciting. Zyla couldn't stop thinking about Sergeant Wild and the undeniable chemistry between them. His raucous charm and playful flirtations had gotten under her skin in the most delightful ways. She found herself looking forward to their physical therapy sessions, more and more craving any excuse to be near him. Monday, as Law shedding to Wilderoom for their scheduled appointment, she heard a strange noise coming from the adjoining bathroom. Concerned that he might have fallen or injured himself, she rushed in without knocking. The sight that greeted her made Zyla's jaw drop and her cheeks flush a deep emerald. There in the shower stood Wild in all his naked gel, aureus impressives welling on full display as she pleasured himself with long languid strokes. Zyla tout a strangled squeak of surprising Wildy head to snap up. Their eyes locked, and for a moment they simply stared at each other, frozen in shock. Then Wild grinned, completely unabashed. Well, hell, other nurse cared to join. Miss Zyla's blush intensified, and she quickly averted her gaze. I'm so sorry, Sergeant. I thought you might be hurt, and I didn't meant to intrude. Wild chuckled, turning off the water and reaching for a towel. No need to apologize. Gorgeous. I'm more than happy to give you a private show anytime. Zyla stammered out a few more apologies before fleeing the bathroom, her heart racing and her mind reeling. The image of Wild nude, formal, hard muscles and tempting curves seemed to be seared into her brain. Later during their therapy session, Zyla tried to act as if nothing had happened, but she couldn't quite meet Wild eyes. He, on the other hand, seemed to be enjoying her fluster state immensely as she guided him through a series of stretches. Wild leaned in close, his breath hot against their ear. You know, if you wanted a closer. Ooh, cap, my anatomy, Yelly had to do. Us Askla's hands faltered, and she nearly lost their grip on his leg. Sergeant, please, I'm trying to maintain a professional demeanor here, Will grinned unrepentant, and I'm trying to get you to loosen up a bit, nurse. We both know there's something special between us. Why fight it? Zayla sighed, torn between her growing feelings for Wild and her duty as a medical professional. It's not that simple. I have responsibilities, and you're my patient. It wouldn't be right, Wild sat of his expression, turning serious. Zyla, I understand your reservati. On's but life is too short to deny yourselves a chance at happiness. I'm not just looking for a flinger, I genuinely care for you. Zyla Shart swelled at his words, and she found herself leaning into his touch as she cued her cheek. I care for you too, Wild, more than I probably should. He's mild, tender, hopeful thing. Then let's see where this takes us. No pressure, no expectations, just two people exploring the connection between them. Zyla hesitated for a moment longer before throwing caution to the wind and pressing her lips to his in a sweet, gentle kiss. Wilder responded eagerly, pulling her closer and deepening the kiss until they were breathless. When they finally parted, Zyla rested her forehead against this agity smile on her face. I suppose we can give this a shot, but we have to be discreet. I don't want to jeopardize my job or your recovery. Wild grinned, stealing another quick kiss. Your secret is safe with Menure. So now about that private anatomy lesson. Zyla swatted his chest, playfully laughing. Despite herself, she knew pursuing a relationship with Wild would be a challenge, but somehow she had a feeling it would be worth every obstacle they faced together. They could overcome anything. Zyla's fascination with human mating rituals grew with each passing day. It all started when she was searching for a medical reference book in the hospital's rarely used library section as she rummaged through the dusty shelves. A small unmarked box, tucked away in the corner, caught there. Your curiosity piqued. Zila pulled the box out and opened, their eyes widening at the contents. Inside was a collection of erotic human literature, ranging from steamy romance novels to more explicit instructional guides. She felt their cheeks flush a deep emerald as she flipped through the page, her heart racing at the provocative images and descriptions. From that moment on, Zyla found herself sneaking away to the library during her breaks, devouring the books with a mixture of fascination and arouse. She marveled at the intricacies of human anatomy and the creative ways they expressed their desires. As she delved deeper into the erotic world of human mating, Zyla began to incorporate her newfound knowledge into her interactions with Wild during their therapy sessions. She would casually brush against them, her touch lingering just a moment longer than necessary. You know, Sergeant, she purred, her finger strailing along his arm as she helped him with a stretch. I read the most fascinating thing about human male endurance last night. Apparently, you're quite the marathon runners in the bedroom. Weld grinned, his eyes dark, airing with desire. Well, nurse, looks like someone's been doing her homework. I'd be more than happy to give you a private demonstration sometime. Zella leaned in closer, her breath hot against this ear. Is that a promise or a challenge? Sergeant, both. He growled, his hands tightening on her hips, and it never backed down from either. Their flirtatious banter continued, growing bolder and more suggestive with each passing day. The sexual tension between them was palpable, crackling like electricity in the air. Zilla found herself craving Wild to touch her body, responding to his proximity in ways she'd never experienced before. One afternoon, as she was guiding Wild through a series of stretches, Zyla couldn't resist letting her hands roam over his muscular form, tracing the contours of his chest and abs. You're looking rather fit. Sergeant, she murmured appreciatively. I can practically feel the power radiating off. Ewald smirked, flexing his muscles under her touch. Well, I have been putting in extra time at the gym. Gotta make sure I'm in peak condition for my favorite nurse's bitter lip desire coursing through her veins. And what exactly did you have in mind, Sergeant? Because I have a few ideas of my own. Wild eyes darkened, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. Oh, I bet you do care to share with the class. Before Zyla could respond, the sound of footsteps in the hallway broke the spell. She quickly stepped back, smoothing her uniform and trying to calm her racing heart. As the days went on, Zyla noticed a change in Wild demeanor. The frustration of his slow recovery was taking a toll, and he became drawn and irritable. Shek knew she had to do something to lift his spirits and remind him of the passion they shared. Inspired by a particularly steamy scene from one of the erotic novels, Zyla planned a surprise physical therapy session for Wild. She dimmed the lights in his room, lit a few scented candles, and queued up a playlist of sensual music. When Wild arrived, his jaw dropped at the sight of Zyla in a form-fitting nurse's uniform, the neckline plunging to reveal a tantalizing hint of cleavage. What's all this? Hest, his voice rough with desire. Zila sauntered over to him, her hips swaying seductively. I thought we could try a different approach to your therapy tonight, she murmured, her hands gliding over his chest. Something to help you relax and unwind. She guided him to the bed, urging him to lie down. Now, Sergeant, she purred, a wicked gleam in here. I have a special role play in mind for tonight. I'll be the naughty nurse, and you'll be my disobedient patient. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to follow my every command. Do you think you can handle that? Wild grin turned predatory. Oh, I can handle anything, you disout nurse. Bring it on. Zilay trailed her fingers down his chest, their touch featherland. Teasing, let's start with a little anatomy lesson, shall we? I want you to show me exactly where you like to be touched. Wild breath hitched as she guided her hand lower his hips, bucking involuntarily. Right, there he growled, his eyes rolling back in pleasure. Zyla smirked, her fingers closing around his tensing body. My sergeant, it seems we have quite the eager student. There, let's see how well you follow instructions. What followed was a night of passion, laughter, and exploration as they lost them. Elvis in their playful games, Isla took great delight in ordering Wild around, making him beg for her touch and rewarding him with mind-blowing pleasure when he obeyed as they tangled together. Afterwards, basking in the afterglow, Wild pressed a tender kiss to Zyla's forehead. That was incredible. Hem murmured, his voice rough with emotion. You're incredible, smiled, snuggling closer to him. You're not so bad yourself, Sergeant. I'm just glad I could help take your mind off things for a while. Wild chuckled, his hand tracing lazy patterns on her back. Oh, you definitely did that. In fact, I might need this kind of therapy more often. I think that can be arranged. Zyla grinned, nipping playfully at this. Joe, after all, it's my duty as your nurse to ensure your complete and thorough recovery in the days that followed. Zyla and Wild I continued to explore their growing bond both physically and emotionally. They traded stories of their past, their hopes and their dreams, learning more about each other with each passing conversation. As Zyla and Wild's relationship blossomed, they found it increasingly difficult to keep their affections hidden. From prying eyes, stolen glances, and lingering touches became a thrilling game of cat and mouse, each daring the other to push the boundaries of discretion. However, their secret tryst did not go noticed by everyone. Dr. Haxon, a senior physician with a reputation for strict adherence to hospital protocols, had been observing Zyla's interactions with the human patient with growing suspicion. One day, as Zyla was leaving Wild a room after a particularly flirtatious therapy session, Dr. Haxon confronted her in the hallway. Nurse Scylla said, his voice cold and accusatory, I couldn't help but notice the amount of time you've been spending with the human patient. Is there something I should be aware of? Zyla's heart raced, but she managed to keep her composure. Not at all. Darhaxon, I'm simply ensuring that Weld receives the best possible care during his recovery. Hack's eyes narrowed, unconvinced to see, and does this care often involve intimate touches and whispered conversations? Zyla's cheeks flushed a deep emerald, but she held her ground. I assure you, Doctor, my relationship with Sergeant Wild is strictly professional. I would never compromise my duties as a nurse. Darhaxon leaned in, loser, his voice lowering to a menacing whisper. I'll be watching you closely, Nurse. Zila, one misstep, and I won't hesitate to report your inappropriate behavior to the hospital board. With that, it turned on his heel and stalked away, leaving Zilla shaken and worried. She knew she had to be more careful, but the thought of giving up her newfound connection with Wild was too painful to bear. Later that evening, Zyla confided in Wild about her confrontation with Traxon. They lay tangled together in his hospital bed, the warmth of his embrace providing a momentary rest. Bite from her fears. I don't know what to do, she whispered, her voice trembling. If Darhaxon exposes us, I could lose my job, and you could be transferred to another facility. Wild tightened his arms around her, pressing a tender kiss to her head. We'll figure this out together, Zyla. I'm not going to let anyone come between us, least of all some uptight doctor with a stick up his ass. Couldn't help but giggle at this colorful description, the tension in her body easing slightly. I just wish we didn't have to hide how we feel. I hate sneaking around like this. Wild cupped her face in his hand, his eyes shining with determination. Then let's be together out in the open. I'm willing to face whatever consequences come our way, as long as I have you by my side. Sila's heart swelled with love and gratitude, but a nagging sense of doubt still lingered. I want that more than anything, but I'm scared. What if they separate us? What if we never see each other again? Wild silenced her worries with a deep, passionate kiss when they finally parted. Breathless and flushed, he rested his forehead against theirs. I won't let that happen, he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. I love you, Zyla, and I'll fight for us no matter what. Zyla's eyes widened at this declaration, her heart soaring with joy. I love you too, more than ever thought possible. They spent the rest of the night wrapped in each other's arms, their love a shield against the uncertain future that lay ahead. In the days that followed, Zale and Wild were more cautious in their interactions, taking great care to maintain a professional facade in public. However, the stolen moments they shared behind closed doors only served to deepen their bond and strengthen their resolve. Rorhax continued to watch them like a hawk, his suspicions growing with each passing day. He began to question not her staff members about Zyla's behavior, hoping to gather enough evidence to bring his case to the hospital board. Zyla knew it was only a matter of time before their secret was exposed. But she refused to let fear control her actions. She focused on providing the best possible care to Wild, both Ash's nurse and Ash's lover. One afternoon, as Zyla was helping Wild with a series of stretches, the door to his room suddenly burst open. A Darhaxenstroi atrium fan smirk on his face. I knew with a pointing and accusing finger at the start-led couple. I've caught you at hand. Dead nurse sexy lay layer in appropriate relationship with this patient, and now Zila's heart sank. But before she could respond, Wild spoke, his voice calm and Haxon. I understand your concerns, but I can assure you that my relationship with Nurse has now compromised my care or her professionalism. In fact, their support and dedication have been instrumental in my recovery. Der Haxon scoffed, unmoved by Wild words. Save your excuses. Sergeant, the hospital has strict policies against fraternization between staff and patients. Nurse Zila will face disciplinary action, and you will be transferred to another facility immediately. Zyla's heart raced, panic rising in her throat. She couldn't bear of losing Wild, not after everything they'd been through together. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw a glimmer of hope and determination. He took her hand in his, squeezing it. Reassuringly, Der Haxon, Wild said, his voice ringing with conviction. I'm afraid I can't let you do that. You see, Nurse Silent and I are more than just patient and caregiver. We're in love, and we're willing to fight for our relationship. No matter the Der Hax's eyes bulged with rage, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. This is outrageous. I'll have you both thrown out of this hospital. But before he could make good on his threat, a voice from the doorway interrupted him. I don't think that will be necessary. Dark Haxon, all eyes turned to see the hospital's chief administrator, a stern-looking woman with piercing blue eyes. I've been monitoring the situation closely, she continued, her gazes shifting between Zyle and Wild, and I've seen no evidence that their relationship has negatively impacted patient care or hospital operations. In fact, I believe their bond has been a source of strength and healing for both of them. Haxon sputtered, his face contorting with indignation. But the policies, the rules, the administrator held up a hand, silencing him. The policies are in place to protect our patients and staff, not to punish them for finding love and support in difficult times. So as long as Nurse Zeal and Sergeant Wild maintain professional boundaries while on duty, is Inorasan to interfere with their personal lives? Zyla felt a wave of relief wash over her, tears of gratitude pricking at the corners of her. Yes, she looked at Wild, who was grinning from Urhizel, Ovian pride shining in his eyes. Haxon, realizing he had lost, stormed out of the room, muttering under his breath about the decline of hospital standards. The administrator turned to Zyla and Wild, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. I wish you both the best of luck. And Sergeant Wild, I expect you to make a full recovery. We need more soldiers like you out there fighting for what's right. With that, she left, leaving the lover salon once more. Zila threw her arms around Wild, laughing and crying at the same time. I can't believe it, she whispered, her voice thick-woo. If the motion we did it, we're going to be okay. Wild held her close, his heart swelling with love and happiness. I told you I'd fight for a Sela, and I always keep my promises. As they basked in the warmth off their embrace, Zila knew that their journey was far from over. There would be more challenges and obstacles to face, both in their relationship and in their careers. But with Wild by her side, she felt like she could take on the entire galaxy together. They would build a future filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. And to think it all started with a shocking disco. Very unexpected swelling as the days turned into weeks. Sile and Wild love only grew stronger with their relationship out in the open. They no longer had to hide their affections, and they reveled in the freedom to express their feelings openly. Wild of recovery progressed remarkably well, thanks in no small part to tender care and unwavering support. As Shir gained his strength and mobility, he began to think about the future, a future that he couldn't imagine without Zyla by his side. One afternoon, while Zyla was busy with her rounds, Wild enlisted the help of his fellow soldiers and hospital staff. Topland the perfect proposal. They worked tirelessly, decorating the hospital gardens with twinkling lights, soft music, and a canopy of stars projected onto the ceiling. Wildy himself spent hours rehearsing his speech, wanting to get every word just right. The paced back and forth in his room, his palms sweaty and his heart racing with anticipation. When the moment finally arrived, Wild took Zyla by the hand and led her to the garden, his eyes shining with love and nervousness. Zyla Gaspida, she took in the breathtaking scene. Before her, the garden had been transformed into a romantic wonderland, with soft lights casting a warm glow over the flowers and trees. Wild, she breathed here, eyes wide with wonder. What is all this? His mild, his heart swelling with love and pride. This, my love, is for you, a small token of my affection and gratitude for everything you've done. Forma held her to a bench nestled beneath a canopy of stars, just trembling slightly as she took a deep breath. Zella, began, his voice thick with emotion from the moment. It first opened my eyes and saw your beautiful face. I knew my life would never be the same. You've been my roe. CK, my guiding light and my reason for fighting. To get better, Zyla's eyes glistened with tears, her heart pounding in her chest. Asha listened to his words and never knew what true love was. Until Ime, you willed, continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. You've shown me the meaning of compassion, dedication, and unwavering support. You've been there for me through every step of my recovery. And I know that I wouldn't be where I am today without you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, his hands shaking with nervous excitement. Zyla, I can't imagine spending another day without you by my side. I want to wake up every morning to your beautiful smile and fall asleep every night with you in my arms. I want to build a life with you filled with laughter, love, and endless adventures. She opened the box, revealing a stunning ring that sparkled with the brilliance of 1,000 stars. Salama, love, my soulmate, will you marry me? Will you be my partner, my lover, and my best friend for the rest of our lives? Tears streamed down Zyla's face as she nodded, her voice choked with emotion. Yes, wild, yes, 1,000 times. Yes, she's lipped the ring. Onto her finger, his own eyes glistening with tears of joy, they embraced, their hearts beating. Asona, their love of force that could conquer any obstacles they pulled apart. Wild grinned, a mischievous glint in his eye. You know, Zila, I promised to shock you with my swelling for the rest of our lives together. Zyla burst out laughing, playfully swatting his chest. You just had to bring that up, didn't you? Wild chuckled, pulling her close once more. Hey, it's a part of our history. Now, the day you first discovered the wonders of human anatomy. Zilla blushed, burying her face in his chest. I was so naive back then. I can't believe it. Thought of you wurging, Wilder pressed tender. Kissed to the top of her head, his voice is soft and sincere. But look at how far we've come since you've learned so much, not just about human biology, but about love, trust, and the strength of the human spirit. Zilla looked up at him here, yes, shining with love and admiration. And you've taught me the true meaning of courage, resilience, and unwavering devotion. I'm so proud of the many are wild, and I'm honored to be your future wife. They sealed their engagement with a passionate kiss, their bodies molding together, as if they were made for each other, the stars above them seem. Edtishan even brighter, as if the universe itself was celebrating their love as they walked hand in hand back to the hospital. Zilla couldn't stop admiring the ring on her finger, a symbol of their unbreakable bond. I can't wait to start planning our wedding. She gushed, her mind already racing with ideas. We'll have to find the perfect venue, choose our colors. And oh, we'll need to pick out our outfits. Wild chuckled, amused by her enthusiasm. As long as you're by my side, I don't care if we get married in a broom close, but I do have one request. Zilla looked at them here, ye brows raise. Edin curiosity, and what's that? He grinned, a wicked gleam in his eye. I want you to wear that sexy nurse's uniform from our role-play session. You know, the one with the plunging neckline and the short skirt. Zila blushed, her cheek stirring a deep emerald. I can't wear that to our wedding. He laughed, pulling her close and nuzzling her neck. I know, but a man can dream, can't they? Continued to banter and tease each other as they made their way back to Wilderoom, their hearts light and their spirits high. Later that night, as they lay tangled in each other's arms, their in slick with sweat and their hearts pounding with the aftershocks of their love-makings, traced her fingers along wild chest, a contented smile on her face. I can't believe we're going to be married, she whispered, her voice filled with wonder and joy. Wild pressed a tender kiss to her forehead, his hand caressing the curve of her hip. Believe it, my love, you're stuck with men. Now swelling and all, Zilla grinned, a wicked gleam in her eye. Speaking of swelling, I think it's time for another anatomy lesson. Don't you? She trailed her hand, lower her fingers, brushing against this already tensing body. Will groaned, his hips bucking involuntarily. Other touch your insatiable woman, he growled, his voice rough with desire. Liz smirked, her hands stroking him with deliberate slowness. And you love me for it, their laughter turned to moans of pleasure as they lost themselves in each other. Once more their bodies moving in perfect harmony, their love of force that could light up the entire galaxy. And as they drifted off to sleep, wrapped in the warmth of their embrace, they knew that their journey together was just beginning, a journey filled with laughter, love, and endless surprises, including the occasional shocking swelling, but they wouldn't have it any other way.